I could have stayed on the other side. I could have stayed where I felt safe, where I didn't have to face anything or anyone. But I made a choice. And here's the thing, I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I had to come back. I had to see this through. And now I'm standing here, telling you, you don't have to wait. You don't need a near-death experience to realize that life is calling you to do something more. You can feel it, right? That nagging sense that there's more for you? But here's what I saw, what I felt, on the other side. The cosmic truth that's waiting for you, just beyond the veil of ordinary existence. Are you ready for it? Watch this. You won't believe what happens next.
Hey, before we proceed into this incredible testimony, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. And as you watch, let me know, what would you do if you found yourself on the other side? Drop your thoughts or even a prayer in the comments below. Let's start a conversation.
Hi, my name is Mark Reynolds. I'm just an ordinary guy, a husband, a father, and someone who used to think he had all the time in the world. I worked a regular job, loved watching football on Sundays, and spent my evenings with my kids, tucking them into bed with stories about heroes and happy endings. I never thought my life would be the kind that ended abruptly. But it did. I'll tell you this, nothing prepares you for the moment your heart stops, and you're suddenly staring at everything you've ever done. You can't run. You can't hide. All those moments where you said, I'll fix this later, or I'll make this right tomorrow. They come rushing back, louder than you've ever heard them before. When I died, I didn't see the white light that people talk about. I wasn't welcomed by glowing figures with open arms. What I saw wasn't what I was expecting, and it wasn't comforting. I need you to hear this because I was shown things that have shaken me to my core. Things I don't think most people are ready for, but you need to be. Because if what I saw is true, and I have no reason to doubt it, we don't have much time left. I'm here to tell you what I wish someone had told me before it was too late. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like there's something huge happening, just out of sight? Something you can't quite explain, but you can feel it? Like the world is on the edge of a cliff, and we're all pretending it's business as usual? I used to feel that way too. I'd hear people talking about signs, the end of days, the Antichrist. I brushed it off, told myself, that's for conspiracy theorists and people who've watched too many movies. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. If you think you've got forever to figure out your life, or that the warnings you've heard are just scare tactics, you need to hear what I'm about to say. Because I saw where this is all heading, and trust me, it's not something you want to be caught unprepared for. When I died, I was shown things I can't unsee. I saw the rise of something so deceptive, so overwhelming, that even the strongest people will be tempted to follow it. And it starts in a place you'd least expect, Egypt. But before we go there, let me tell you how I got to that point. How my ordinary day turned into something I still can't wrap my head around. You're not going to believe what happened next. The unexpected death. It started out like any other day. I woke up late, rushing to get ready for work, spilling coffee on my shirt, and swearing under my breath about how everything always seemed to go wrong at the worst time. You've probably had mornings like that. Busy, messy, and filled with a million little annoyances. Looking back now, I realize how much I took for granted. The chaos, the laughter of my kids in the background, my wife shouting something about paying the bills. Those small, mundane moments that we all think will last forever. I had no idea that by the end of the day, none of it would matter. That I wouldn't be coming back. It happened so fast. One moment I was driving down the highway, my favorite song playing on the radio, thinking about what to grab for dinner on my way home. And then, nothing. They say your life flashes before your eyes in those final moments. But for me, it wasn't like that at all. There wasn't a flash. There was a sudden, jarring stop. And then, silence. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. I saw my body, crumpled in the car, surrounded by flashing lights and the sound of people shouting. But I wasn't there anymore. I was somewhere else. Have you ever woken up from a dream and felt like you were falling? That split second of panic before you realize you're safe in your bed? That's the closest thing I can compare it to, except this time, I wasn't waking up. I was falling deeper into something I couldn't escape. I tried to scream, to call out for help, but nothing came out. And then, the fear set in. Not just fear of the unknown, but fear that I knew exactly where I was headed. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you weren't ready? Like there was something you should have done, something you were supposed to fix, but kept putting off? That's how I felt in that moment, except I couldn't go back. The guilt, the regrets, they were heavier than anything I'd ever carried in life. I thought about my family, the people I loved, the things I should have said but didn't. The apologies I owed. The promises I broke. And then, as I stood there watching everything unravel, I felt something. A pull, like I was being dragged by an invisible force. Not forward, but down. That's when I realized this wasn't just death. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Something I wasn't prepared for. You're probably wondering what happened next. What I saw, where I went, and why I'm here to tell you about it. Let me warn you, it's not what you're expecting. The journey through the afterlife. The pull grew stronger. It wasn't just my body. It felt like my soul was being dragged through layers of darkness. I couldn't fight it, no matter how hard I tried. I kept asking myself, where am I going? What happens now? And then, I landed. Or maybe I didn't. I just stopped. Everything around me was black, but not the kind of black you see when you close your eyes. This was alive. It pressed against me, heavy and cold, like it was trying to swallow me whole. Suddenly, I heard it. A voice. Not loud, but clear enough to send shivers down my spine. It didn't speak words I could understand, but I knew exactly what it was saying. Your time has come. You are here to see what lies ahead. Ahead. What did that mean? I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't supposed to be here. Then, without warning, the darkness cracked open like a broken mirror, and I was pulled through it. The weight disappeared, and I found myself in a place that didn't feel real. Have you ever looked at something and thought, this isn't right? That's how this place felt. It was too quiet. Too still. The air was thick, and everything had a grayish tint, like all the color had been drained out of the world. And then, I saw them. People. Thousands of them. Standing in rows, their faces blank, their eyes empty. They weren't moving, but they weren't statues either. It was like they were stuck between life and death, trapped in a space where time didn't exist. That's when it hit me, they were waiting. Waiting for something, or someone. A voice whispered in my ear. Do you see them? These are the ones who waited too long. They thought they had more time. My chest tightened. What did that mean? Was I one of them? I tried to scream, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. And then, the ground beneath me started to shift. Slowly at first, like sand slipping through my fingers. And then, faster and faster, until I was falling again. But this time, I wasn't alone. I could hear whispers all around me. Angry, desperate voices, clawing at my mind. They weren't words, but I understood them. Why didn't you listen? Why didn't you prepare? I wanted to cry, to plead, but no one was listening. Finally, I stopped falling. I was standing in a place I couldn't describe, because it wasn't just a place. It was a feeling. Fear. Hopelessness. And something else. Judgment. That's when I saw him. A figure standing in the distance, shrouded in shadows. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his eyes on me, piercing through everything I'd ever done, every lie I'd ever told, every moment I'd wasted. He raised his hand and pointed. The whispers stopped. The world went silent. Then he spoke. Not with words, but with a voice that shook the ground beneath me. You are not here by chance. You have been shown what awaits. Before I could ask what that meant, everything went black again. But this time, I wasn't falling. I was being pulled toward a light. And in that light, I saw it, the truth. What's coming? What's waiting for all of us if we don't wake up? You want to know what I saw next, don't you? You're not ready. But you need to hear this. The revelation in Egypt. When the light pulled me forward, I thought I was going to wake up. I thought it was over. But I was wrong. The brightness faded, and I found myself standing in a place I'd never been before, but somehow I knew it. It felt ancient, heavy with time, like the air itself had witnessed things no one could fully understand. I was standing in what looked like a great desert. The ground was cracked, dry, and stretched out endlessly. In the distance, there were shapes, massive structures rising against the horizon. At first, I couldn't make sense of them, but as I moved closer, I realized what I was seeing. Pyramids. But these weren't the ones you've seen in pictures or documentaries. No. These were alive. Not in the way we think of life, but there was something breathing in them. Their surfaces glimmered faintly, like they were pulsing, and I could feel something radiating from them. Something dark. A voice whispered again, the same one I'd heard before. This is where it will begin. I didn't understand. What would begin? But before I could ask, the ground beneath my feet shifted. A crack appeared, and from it rose a figure. Let me tell you, I've never felt fear like that in my entire life. Not even when I knew I was dying. This figure wasn't human. Not entirely. It had the outline of a man, but its face was blurred, shifting, like it didn't want to be seen. But its eyes, those were clear. Burning. Piercing right into me. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. It spoke, and its voice felt like it was crawling under my skin. You think you have time. You think you know the truth. But you are blind. It raised its hand, and suddenly, the desert around me changed. The pyramids crumbled, and in their place rose massive towers, black, twisted, and reaching high into the sky. The land was filled with people, millions of them, walking aimlessly, their faces pale and lifeless. The figure pointed to them. These are the ones who followed. These are the ones who believed the lies. I felt a cold wind rush past me, and the sky above turned blood red. The voice spoke again. He will come from here. He will rise, and they will bow. They will think he is their savior, but he will lead them to destruction. I wanted to scream, to wake up, but I couldn't move. All I could do was watch. And then I saw him. A man standing on a platform, surrounded by crowds. At first, he looked ordinary. But as I looked closer, I saw it. His eyes. They were the same as the figures. Burning, piercing, filled with power that wasn't his own. The voice whispered again, softer this time, but no less chilling. He will promise them peace. He will promise them salvation. And they will believe him. I wanted to ask who he was, but deep down, I already knew. You do too, don't you? This wasn't just a vision. It was a warning. A glimpse of what's coming. I don't know why I was shown this. Maybe to tell you. Maybe because you needed to hear it. But listen to me now. The time is shorter than you think. Are you ready? Are you sure? Because what I saw, it's not something you can ignore. The chilling biblical parallel. I stood there, frozen, as the vision around me shifted again. The figure was still there, silent now, watching me with those terrible, burning eyes. But the scene, it was different. This time, I was in what looked like a massive courtroom. Stone walls stretched high above me, torches flickering in the shadows. There was a book, an enormous book, sitting on a stand in the center. Its pages were yellowed and worn, but the words on them glowed like fire. The voice spoke again, but it wasn't from the figure this time. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Do you understand now?" I shook my head, terrified but desperate for answers. And that's when it showed me. The pages of the book began to turn on their own, faster and faster, until they stopped at a passage. I couldn't read the words, but as I stared at them, they filled my mind. They weren't just words, they were events, moments in time. The rise of the man I had seen in the desert, the towers of darkness, the crowds bowing before him, and then a flood of fire sweeping through the earth, consuming everything in its path. The voice spoke again, softer this time, but heavy with meaning. "You've read this before, haven't you?" And I had. Or at least, I thought I had. In pieces, in fragments, in stories I'd been told as a child but never really believed. It was all there, written long ago, in a book we've all heard of but few truly understand. The Bible. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a story. It wasn't just words on a page. This was real. This was happening. And suddenly, everything clicked. The figure I had seen wasn't just anyone. The man rising to power, promising salvation, leading millions into darkness. He was the one we've been warned about. The one they call the Antichrist. And the destruction that followed. It wasn't just chaos. It was judgment. I looked at the book again, trembling. The pages turned to another passage, and this time, I didn't need to guess. It was clear as day. 4 false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. My heart sank. I looked around the courtroom, hoping for some sign of mercy, some way to stop what I was seeing. But the figure stepped forward, closer than ever, and its voice cut through me like a blade. "You were chosen to see this. To tell them. But will they listen?" That question hung in the air like a heavy weight. Will you? Will anyone? I don't know why I was shown this. Maybe it was a warning for you. Maybe it was a last chance for all of us to wake up before it's too late. The scene began to fade, but before it disappeared completely, the voice spoke one last time. "The time is near. You've seen the signs. Now it's your choice." And just like that, I was back in the darkness. Alone. But that wasn't the end. Oh no, not even close. What came next? I can barely find the words. The cosmic battle. When the darkness faded, I found myself standing in a vast, open field. The ground beneath me was cracked and dry, but the sky above, it was unlike anything I've ever seen. It wasn't just a sky. It was a battlefield. On one side, there was this overwhelming light. It wasn't soft or warm like sunlight. It was sharp, blinding, and full of power. You could feel it in your chest, like it was pulling every good thing in you to the surface. But on the other side, there was the darkness. I don't know how to describe it, but it wasn't just the absence of light. It was alive, moving. It twisted and churned like a storm, swallowing everything it touched. It was cold, heavy, and then I saw them. They weren't people exactly, but they had shapes, faces, forms. Beings of light on one side, standing tall, strong, with weapons that looked like they were made of pure energy. And on the other side, creatures. Twisted, horrifying shapes, their eyes burning with hate. The air between them was charged, like it was holding its breath. And then, as if some invisible signal had been given, they collided. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound. It was deafening. Light crashing against darkness, like waves in a violent storm. The ground shook beneath me. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It was terrifying, but it was also awe-inspiring. I watched as the light pushed forward, forcing the darkness back, only for the darkness to surge again, clawing its way closer. And in the middle of it all, I saw something that made my heart stop. There were people. Some were standing with the light, their faces calm and determined. But others were caught in the middle, pulled one way, then the other, like they couldn't decide where they belonged. I wanted to shout at them, to tell them to run, to choose, to do something. But my voice wouldn't come. And then, out of the chaos, I saw him. The figure from before. The one in the desert. The one who had led the people into the towers of darkness. He was there, standing with the shadows, his hand raised as if he was commanding the storm. But he wasn't winning. The light was stronger, brighter. It was pushing back the darkness, bit by bit. I could feel the tide turning. And then, just when it seemed like the light would finally win, the figure turned. He looked straight at me. I don't know how he saw me. I wasn't even close to the battlefield, but his eyes locked on mine, and I felt this wave of fear crash over me. It was like he knew me, like he'd been waiting for me. He raised his hand, and the darkness surged again, more violent than before. The light faltered, just for a moment, and in that moment, I understood. This wasn't just a battle. It was a test. Not for them. For us. For me. For you. For everyone. The vision began to blur, the sounds fading into silence. The battlefield grew dim, and the ground beneath me crumbled away. I was falling again, spinning through darkness, and I could hear the voice from before echoing in my mind. You've seen what's coming. Now you must decide. And just like that, I woke up. But what happened next is something I still struggle to explain. Coming back wasn't as simple as just opening my eyes. There's something about crossing the line between life and death that changes everything. Stick with me, because in the next part, I'll tell you about what it felt like to return to life. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. This might be the part you've been waiting for all along. Returning to life. When I woke up, it wasn't like the movies where you gasp for air and sit up straight. It was slower, strange. Almost like I wasn't sure if I was in my body yet. I could feel my chest rising and falling. My heart was beating, but it felt off, like it wasn't mine. For a moment, I didn't open my eyes. I was scared. Scared of what I might see. But then, I heard a voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. It was soft, almost like a whisper in the back of my mind. But it was steady. Comforting. It said, "You're back. It's not over. It's just beginning." And that's when the flood hit me. Not water. Memories. The desert. The towers. The battlefield. The choice. It all came rushing back, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. What had I seen? Was it real? Was I even alive? I opened my eyes, and the room came into focus. The harsh lights. The faces staring down at me. Doctors. Nurses. Machines beeping. But there was one face that stood out. My mom. She was gripping my hand so tight, tears streaming down her face. I'll never forget the way she looked at me, like she'd been holding her breath for days and was finally able to exhale. "Thank God," she said. I wanted to speak, to tell her I was okay, but the words wouldn't come. Not because I couldn't talk, but because I didn't know how to talk about what I'd seen. How do you explain something like that? How do you look at someone and say, "I saw the end of everything"? Or, "There's a battle happening right now, and we're all part of it"? I closed my eyes again, trying to piece it all together, but something felt different. It wasn't just my body that had come back. My mind, my heart, everything felt clearer. Like I'd been given a second chance, but not just to live. To do something. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't the same person who'd left. I don't know why I was sent back. I don't know why I got to live when so many others don't. But I do know one thing. It wasn't for nothing. Now, here's the part where I need you to pay attention. Because if you're listening to this right now, it's not by accident. Have you ever wondered why you're here? why you're alive right now, in this moment, what your purpose is. I used to think life was just about getting through the day, making it to tomorrow. But now, I know there's more. There has to be. And if you've ever felt like there's something pulling at you, like there's more you're supposed to do, you're right. But here's the thing. The time to act isn't someday. It's now. And that brings me to the most important part of this story. The call to action and reflection. What I realized next changed everything. And I'm not just talking about my life. This is about all of us. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to share might be the answer you've been waiting for. Here's where things get real, and I need you to really hear me. After everything I went through, after being pulled back from that place, I started to realize something. We don't just live to survive. That's not why we're here. We're not just meant to go through the motions and wait for the end. We were meant for something bigger. Something more meaningful. When I was gone, I saw it all. The battle, the fight between good and evil, light and darkness. And let me tell you, it's not just happening out there. It's happening inside you. If you've ever felt like there's something pulling at you, like your life isn't just about the routine, the job, the family, or whatever else you're focused on, that's the universe calling you. It's telling you that you've got a bigger purpose. You've got something important to do, and time is running out. Don't ignore it. Have you ever thought, I know I'm meant for more, but then pushed it away, telling yourself you'll deal with it later? Maybe you felt it, that little voice in your head telling you to take action, to do something, anything, more than what you're doing now. I've felt it. And let me tell you, there's no time like now. Because here's the thing, we all have a choice. You can sit back and ignore the call, letting life happen to you. Or you can rise up and grab hold of your purpose. It's right in front of you, just waiting for you to make that move. Think about it. What if this is your moment? What if everything you've gone through, everything you've faced, has been preparing you for this? You're not here by accident. You were brought into this world for a reason. And I know that sounds heavy, but hear me out. Life isn't about just going through the motions. It's about choosing to be the person you were meant to be. So, I'm asking you, what are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with the life you've been given? And I know it's easy to say, I'll figure it out later, but trust me, later might never come. That's the harsh truth. Don't wait until it's too late to realize that you've been missing out on the life you were meant to live. Right now, you have a chance. A real chance to make things happen. And if you don't act now, if you keep putting it off, you might miss the opportunity of a lifetime. Now, this is where I need to ask you something important. Are you ready to take that step? Are you ready to stop waiting for something to change and start making the change yourself? You don't have forever. That's something I learned the hard way. Don't wait for the universe to knock you off course to show you your purpose. Take the first step. Start today. Do it now. In the next section, I'm going to share the final piece, the key to everything I've learned. The one thing that can change everything for you, just like it changed everything for me. Don't leave now. The biggest revelation is coming up next. So, here we are at the end of my story. But honestly, it's not really the end. It's just the beginning of something much bigger. You've heard me talk about what happened to me. The battle, the light, the darkness. The choice to return to life. And now, I want to share with you something that hit me like a ton of bricks. The world is so much more than what we see on the surface. There's something deeper going on. Something bigger than any of us could ever imagine. But here's the part I want you to really feel. You are not here by accident. Everything that's happened in your life, the good, the bad, the moments you thought you couldn't handle, they've all been guiding you. They've been pushing you toward something. Toward this moment. I could have stayed on the other side. I could have stayed where I felt safe, where I didn't have to face anything or anyone. But I made a choice. And here's the thing, I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I had to come back. I had to see this through. And now I'm standing here, telling you, you don't have to wait. Do you hear me? You don't have to wait for some grand, dramatic moment to wake up. You don't need a near-death experience to realize that life is calling you to do something more. You can do it right now. I felt what it was like to be on the other side. And now, I'm living with the full knowledge that life is precious. Every single second. Every breath. And I'm telling you, if you're sitting there wondering, what's the point? What should I do? The answer is simple. Live fully. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop wondering if you're good enough, or if you're ready. You're more than ready. You've always been ready. But don't take my word for it. Don't just listen to the stories. Go out and make your own story. And if you're still wondering what's holding you back, let me ask you this. What's stopping you from taking the leap? What's stopping you from living the life you've been dreaming of? You've heard the call. The universe is already waiting for you to step up. Now, it's your turn. Will you? I want you to sit with that. Think about it. Because you don't have forever. And trust me when I say, you don't want to look back and wonder, what if I'd done it? What if I had stepped forward when the chance was right in front of me? The time is now. Don't let it slip away. It's your life. You're in charge. You can make it anything you want. So, are you going to take that step? Are you going to live fully without holding back? Because if you don't, you might miss the life that was always waiting for you. This is your moment. The choice is yours.
Wow, what a journey. I hope this testimony left you thinking. If it did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share with anyone who might need a little inspiration today. And hey, if this hit you in a way that you can't explain, take a moment right now and leave a prayer or a message in the comments. Who knows, your words might just make a difference to someone else. Let's keep this conversation going together.